And we're joined in the studio by Lara Bundock.
Hi there, Susie.
Hi, Lara.
Hi.
Welcome. And you're from the Snowdrop Project.
I am, that's right, yes.
Great. So can you tell us a little bit about the work you're involved in?
Absolutely. So a lot of people are usually quite surprised to find out that modern slavery, or trafficking as other people know it, still exists in the world, and it still exists in the UK, very sadly. It's currently estimated that there's about 11 to 13,000 people at one time caught in slavery in the UK. And so the Snowdrop Project is involved in helping people who either manage to escape from that or are rescued from that to restart their lives. So we look at the long-term support of survivors. So anything from social support and advocacy, so helping them with police investigations, helping them reconnect to family, helping them with housing, getting back into employment or education, learning English if that's necessary and important. So we help with that side of thing. We also offer a therapeutic service as well, and counselling. And we also then help to put on community activities to create ways that they can meet people, make new friends. And then lastly, we help when they get council accommodation. The houses that they usually get are not furnished, not painted, and we go in with a bunch of volunteers, paint the house, bring in second-hand furniture that's good quality, that's donated, and we help turn the house into a home so that they have somewhere nice to live and start life again.
Wow, sounds fantastic work. Based here in Sheffield.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So you are the founder of the Snowdrop Project.
I am, that's right.
What gave you the idea to start this work?
That's a great question. The government currently do a great job in providing short-term support. So as soon as somebody is found, they go into safe houses around the UK. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I started working in one of the government safe houses, which was great. And I saw incredible improvement in the people that we were supporting. But because of some of the stipulations, that support basically comes to quite an abrupt end. And when I was working there, I started to see the repercussions of that support ending really suddenly. And just watched people that I'd supported become homeless again, get into debt, their mental health problems just go through the roof, turn to alcohol or drug abuse, go potentially back to exploitation. They went missing. And it got to the point where I thought, I can't really stand seeing this anymore. And so I basically came up with an idea of how we might be able to provide community support, follow-on community support. At the time, using really highly trained volunteers to provide that one-to-one support, overseen by myself at that point. And I was a trained social worker, and that team has grown, which is fantastic. And that's why we've been able to grow our service. But that's really where it came from, was that belief that really people deserve to have that kind of assistance long term to help them get their lives back together in the way that they want to, and begin to believe in a future again. And often that assistance is needed longer than the short term that's able to be provided by the safe houses.
Fantastic. So you just started with the idea and no funding or anything?
Yep, literally an idea and nothing, and a few key people who also believed in the vision, who have just been incredible. One of the women who's now our local coordinator, called Rachel, has been kind of really instrumental in implementing that alongside me the whole way. So basically, it was just a few of us with a bit of a vision and a dream, and that was it really. And it was amazing how many people got around us to support that vision. Whether it was businesses giving us, Owen Mitchell's gave us kind of training space to train our volunteers. One of the local churches called Antioch Community Church, they gave us office space to run out for free, and so people just jumped on board with the vision and really believed in it, and that's kind of what propelled us forward and kept us going.
Wow, it sounds incredibly important work. I was just wondering where the name came from, the Snowdrop Project.
Yeah, So when we were first creating the idea, we brainstormed a number of different possibilities, and we put them out in front of both volunteers and some of the women that I was working with in the Safe House, people that were invested, and got them to vote on which one they thought. And everybody went for this one, for Snowdrop Project. And the main reason is because the image of the snowdrop and what it conjures up. So it's the first flower to push through the winter season and signal the bringing of a new season of spring. It often looks quite fragile, but it's actually full of strength because it can push through pavements, it can push through the ice. And actually that's what we see with a lot of the people that we support, that people often think that they might be really timid or weak or this kind of thing. But actually the people that we support have this incredible resilience and strength to keep going. And we wanted to come up with a name that would have nothing to do with slavery, nothing to do with the past, and everything to do with the future and bringing hope and a new season and a fresh start. And we thought that was kind of captured within the idea of the snowdrop.
Fantastic. So you recently received quite a lot of funding.
We did.
What difference is that going to make to the work you do?
Huge. It's massive. It basically stabilises what we're doing in Sheffield. So for the last sort of 3.5 years, it has been completely run by volunteers. And without being able to pay people, you aren't able, including the sort of top team, you don't know from one moment to the next whether that service is going to continue or not. So in one way, it means that we can assure people that we're supporting that we are around for, at least the next 3 years and beyond. It also allows us to start paying some more senior caseworkers who start taking on more complicated cases. It means that we can really start growing some of our other services, start now being able to pay some of our counsellors as well as our caseworkers, and then growing what we're doing internally as well, looking at more community activities. And then finally, probably looking at next year, the funding allows us to explore the next city for expansion. Over the last year, I've had about 5 cities around the country ask for a Snowdrop project to be started in their city, and I've kind of had to say, not possible. I can't do that without any sort of funding. And so the funding from the big lottery actually allows us to explore which of those cities will be next and then start rolling it out.
Fantastic, yeah. So it's very important work, must be very challenging as well. What do you find most challenging about what you do?
Probably 2 things are probably the most challenging. One is probably what most people would expect to be the most challenging thing is sometimes the situations that you deal with and the stories that you hear do just amaze me sometimes, that sadly this kind of cruelty still exists in the world, and that people are allowed to go through what they've been through when they've been tortured and exploited. And to go with that, sometimes the continued injustices that you see to those people, even after they've come out of their slavery and their exploitation, there's then a lot of challenges that they face, sadly set down by kind of institutions and rules and laws and this kind of thing, which are there for a reason, but it becomes very, very challenging, particularly with mental health problems or with very little English. And so some of those, the challenges that you face are very hard. And actually for the last sort of 3.5 years, keeping a charity going with no funding and with it, there's a lot of back work that both me and some of my colleagues have done. And that gets really, really challenging. Sometimes you just sit down by a photocopier and cry, as I did at one point, and go, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. But it's worth it because of, I think you'll probably go on to this, but it's worth it because of the team that's around me, but also seeing the incredible changes in the individual lives and hearing the feedback of what the service means to somebody. Whether that is that somebody has said, without your support, I would have killed myself. Without your support, I would have gone back to my traffickers and or gone back to the streets again. People who've said, the main thing I look forward to in my week is coming to your dance class because it makes me forget about the things that have happened in the past, and I glimpse a chance of being happy and free again. Seeing we've got a couple of court cases going forwards at the moment where people are going to stand up against their traffickers, and that's huge. That's a massive deal. And so seeing people's lives just come back together, seeing mothers reunited with their children that they were separated from because of the trafficking, it makes those fights completely worthwhile.
So what's the best thing for you about the Snowdrop Project?
Again, probably two things, if I'm allowed to to say two. One is what I was sort of starting to talk about before the break, about seeing the incredible changes that come about in the lives of the people that we support. So seeing somebody go from, probably about 18 months ago, we started supporting a lady who's 53. She'd been a domestic servant for many, many, many years, and she was about to be made homeless and have nothing at all. And we worked with her. We also worked with Assist in the city as well. And she is now kind of in stable housing and accommodation. She's almost fluent in English. She's looking for work. She's working with the police to stand up against her trafficker. She's absolutely incredible, and the change that you can see in her is amazing. Seeing, like, I think I briefly talked about it, but we see quite a few women who, because of the trafficking, were separated from their children in the home country, and part of what we do is we work with the Red Cross, with their reconnection service, and help mothers to reconnect with their children. Seeing that is absolutely amazing. I'd say seeing the houses renovated when there's and the women walk in at the beginning, it's like, oh my goodness, how is this ever going to be a home? And then taking this bunch of volunteers in for a crazy sort of 3 days where you work from 7 a.m. till whatever time at night, painting walls and running around like a headless chicken. And by the end of it, seeing this house completely transformed into a home, and again just seeing the faces of the women and the children see this home as theirs and realise that this is the place that they are finally going to be able to live and stabilise. So just those kind of incredible changes and the improvement in confidence and the belief in the future and a hope again is some of the most amazing things to watch and be part of. And then the other thing that I love is the team. I'm not going to lie. I'm biased, I'm sure, but I feel so fortunate. The team of now staff that we've got and the incredible volunteers. I've never heard of volunteers who are so committed to a cause and a project. I mean, we have a track record of literally having volunteers with us for 2.5, 3.5 years, who just continue to believe in it and put their time and effort and resources into the project. And I'm just blown away by them, and it feels like a real privilege to see that all the time. I love it.
Right. Yeah. So since you started, it must have been quite a sharp learning curve from having the idea to get into this stage. And looking back, is there anything you'd have done differently?
Oh wow, that is a really good question. Okay, let me have a quick think. Would I have done anything differently? I think I might have asked for help a little bit more. I mean, I do try to ask for help, but I probably would have done so even more. I might have tried to apply for funding earlier on, but again, I didn't actually have the knowledge or the resources to know how to do that, and so that's been part of the learning curve. And although the length of time was really, it felt like forever to get to this point, looking back, I can see how that period of time actually created this incredible foundation to start building on. Whereas both me and my colleague Rachel were reflecting on this and saying, if actually it had happened much faster, neither of us feel like we would have been ready to actually grow this in a healthy way. I think we would have just sort of collapsed under the kind of weight of funding and not knowing what to do with it, whereas the 3.5 years has kind of allowed us to forge the skills that we needed to build those foundations in. So, yeah, that's a really good question. I'll have to think even harder about that.
Great. So that's the past. What about the future, the long-term goals? You've got the funding secures the Snowdrop Project for 3 years.
It does, yes.
Any thoughts after that?
Yes, well, hopefully to continue. But, I mean, our vision overall is to see every survivor, every person who has been trafficked or been in modern slavery, be entitled to or be able to access long-term support wherever they are in the country. And so that we want to see more people recognise and more people jump on board support, essentially. What we would love to do as Snowdrop, obviously, is open more branches so that we can access that. But also, if there are organisations that we can then train, facilitate, help to look at this area of work and learn more about it, that's also something that we're looking into. Obviously, long-term vision is that trafficking doesn't exist. That's the main thing. And our part of that is, that we work against re-trafficking, because by stabilising people's lives, you reduce the chance of that. And also to help with the knowledge that we've got of what makes people vulnerable is to start informing and teaching people about, okay, these are the dangers, these are the risks, these are the push factors into trafficking, these are the pull factors. And start to hopefully change some of those statistics around.
And as you say, it's something we should probably all know a bit more about. What would you advise someone? How can we find out more about human trafficking? Good
question. There is a lot of information now out there about indicators. So there's a lot of things now, particularly in different sectors, whether it's the hotel industry or whether in the police or whether in social care, whether you're a taxi driver, whether you just employ cleaners or have third-party recruiters, that kind of thing. There's a lot out there where you can start to inform yourself about indicators that somebody might be a victim of trafficking. And so you can look at things like there's something called the Gangmasters Licensing Authority, which sounds terrible, but it's not. It's great. And they have really great information about slave labour for companies, supermarkets, organisations, clothing industries, those kind of things, about indicators. If you go onto websites like the Salvation Army and their anti-trafficking bit, they have some ideas about indicators. And there are, for those who are in the social care and the healthcare sector, there are now training opportunities to find out about indicators. And then I think just in terms of the general public, reading up on those indicators and knowing how to respond. So when is it appropriate to call 101 or 999? When would you call ourselves at the Snowdrop Project just to ask for a bit of advice? When might you call the referral hotline, which is on the Salvation Army website, to refer somebody for support? And it's just getting more clued up, I think, on what the indicators are and then what to do if you think you have identified somebody.
Yeah, you've mentioned the fantastic work of volunteers quite a bit.
Yes.
Are you looking for volunteers at the moment?
We're always looking for volunteers. We, at the moment, one of the things that we would sort of really value is befrienders and renovation volunteers. It's slightly lower level, so we have sort of 3 levels of volunteering. One is our casework support, and that's more intense volunteering, and we have quite an intense training programme. It's an 8-module training programme, so that people know what they need to be geared up to do. But our befrienders are sort of lower level, and it literally is as it sounds. Potentially attending an appointment if a caseworker can't go, helping to run community activities, going with somebody to show them where the supermarket is if they don't know, just essentially befriending. And then our renovation volunteers are literally just one-off type of thing. And we advertise for that usually through our Facebook group. And that is literally if somebody has a day and they can pick up a paintbrush, or we sometimes lack strong guys to come and or strong women, whichever, but to come and lift massive furniture. Last week, me and a couple of people were trying to lug around. We had a massive fridge, and we had a cooker. We had a washing machine. That was the heaviest thing. So people who are willing to literally just pick up something heavy and get it in a van for us. And those requests go out, like I said, on Facebook. And then the last way, I guess, that we're really looking for people to jump on board is, although we've got funding now for our staff, which is brilliant because it stabilises us, we still fundraise to allow us to run activities. So to put on stuff like the community activities, the dance groups, the sewing classes, the English classes, just that kind of money that we need to run project stuff. And we do that through fundraising. And one thing that people can really get on board with if they feel like jumping out of a plane is jumping out of a plane. We're doing a sponsored skydive October the 8th, I believe, and we're trying to get as many people as we can signed up for that. And if people raise 500, they get to jump for free. We're taking a mass load of people over to the site to jump all together. We did it last year and raised over £7,000, which helped fund us new offices. And we had 2 of the women jump with us as well. They took part in the fundraising. And it's an incredible day out, but it's also it's a great way to input into the charity as well.
That's fantastic, Laura. Thank you. So you mentioned the Facebook page. How can people find out more?
Facebook, definitely, is a good way. Like us on Facebook, and then you'll see the updates. And the other way is through the website, which is www.snowdropproject.co.uk. And that's got the opportunities in terms of volunteering. We've still got a couple of staff spaces that we're recruiting for until next Tuesday. And then more about trafficking in general. We put information on there about the background to trafficking so that people can understand it. And those currently are the best ways. And then sending us emails either to the info@Snowdrop Project account, or if people are interested in volunteering,